I was going to show this little video that you did where you're reacting to Netanyahu and Peterson.
The arguments of often young people who are more prone to give credence and sympathy, say, to the Palestinian viewpoint. And I'd like to rectify my ignorance and maybe help my viewers and listeners do the same thing. So would it be useful to start with Herzl?
Well, I'd start, Herzl was what I call our modern Moses, but I'd actually start with the original Moses. The Jewish people have lived in the land of Israel, what is now the state of Israel, have lived here and have been attached to this place for about 3,500 years. So the Bible describes how the Jewish people lived on this land, were attached to this land, fought off conquerors, sometimes were conquered, but stayed on their land. And that continued for a very long time until roughly the 7th century, actually, after the birth of Christ. Okay, the loss of our land actually occurred when the Arab conquest took place in the 7th century. The Arabs burst out from Arabia, and they did something that no other conqueror, not the Romans, not the Byzantines, not the Greeks before them, not Alexander the Great, nobody did before. They actually started taking over the land of the Jewish farmer. They brought in military colonies that took over the land. And gradually, over the next 2 centuries, the Jews became a minority in our land. So it is under the Arab conquest that the Jews lost their homeland. The Arabs were the colonials. The Jews were the natives dispossessed. Well, that happens in history. The Jews were dispossessed. We were flung to the far corners of the earth, suffered unimaginable suffering because we had no homeland. But we didn't disappear, and we never gave up the dream of coming back to our ancestral homeland. Well, that was made possible because the Arabs who had conquered the land basically left it barren. They never made it their own. It was a barren land. It really had, practically, it was an empty land. And in the 19th century, the idea of coming back next year in Jerusalem became a reality. The result of this return was that we started building farms, factories, places of employment. Arabs from nearby countries started immigrating, and they call themselves Palestinians. They reconstructed history and said, we've been here for centuries. No, they haven't. They weren't there at all, and they didn't have a national consciousness. We came back, made it our land, and we said, okay, we now will live together. We decided to establish a state in 1948, that's 75 years ago, and we said, everybody can live here. The Arabs said, there can't be a Jewish state. You have no right to be here. It's our land. It's not your land. It's been our land for 3,500 years.
Interview with Jordan Peterson, Netanyahu lays out the groundwork that justifies everything that comes next. Basically says this: the Arabs came to the land of Israel in the 7th century, forced all the Jews into exile and colonized Israel. Then they left it barren. Then they decided to come back, and the Jews who had just come to the land of Israel and made it flourish welcomed the Arabs back. And then 1948 comes along, and the Arab countries attack us. They tell the Arabs in the land of Israel to leave, and then they blame us for the refugee problem. Again, the world according to Benjamin Netanyahu, which has nothing to do with reality. It was a country that was flourishing, cities and villages, agriculture, industry, a political life, a judiciary, an academic life, hospitals, schools. Now, as Netanyahu is spewing this nonsense, the most radical elements of the Zionist world, their people on the ground are marching through Palestinian towns and neighborhoods, from Sheikh Jarrah to Al Khalil to Hebron to all over the place, shouting, another Nakba is coming. So was there a Nakba or wasn't there a Nakba? Now, the man responsible here is Benjamin Netanyahu. Under his watch, Palestinians are suffering every single day. They're being killed. They're being arrested. They're being tortured. Their homes are being destroyed. Their lands are being taken. Their water is being denied to them. Their kids are being tortured and killed. Every single day under his watch, Palestinians are being irritated in all of these issues at the same time. The refugees, the prisoners, Jerusalem, Ramadan, Al-Aqsa. What do you think is going to happen? What can anybody expect to happen? Especially when the man holding the keys to all of this is the madman, the lunatic, the racist thug, Itamar Ben-Gvir. The future couldn't be more dangerous. People need to stand up. People need to organize. make sure that your elected officials or unelected officials understand that it's time to act. Challenge people like Peterson, who interview Netanyahu and don't challenge him. People like Joel Osteen, people like Bill Maher. Shame on them for giving this platform to a criminal, a war criminal, a vicious liar. Get informed, get other people informed, get other people angry, get other people ready to act. This cannot continue. We cannot pretend like nothing is going on.
Well said.
There you have it.
There you have it. Yeah.
There you have it. But you can't. I mean, it's time for rage. I mean, it really is time for rage. It's time for people to be outraged and to act. Because if we're going to sit around and just kind of talk about it all day long, nothing's going to change. And these members of Congress that go to Israel and visit and come back saying how wonderful it is, or people like the EU commissioner, this can't be allowed to continue. The constituents have to act. I mean, they're democracies, and they have to make it clear to their elected officials that this cannot go on any longer, cannot continue.